Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and normally Niantic only does move updates at the start of every season. But today, due to Mega Absol Raid Day, for the first time ever, Absol gets access to a new charge attack. Absol previously, it had a bunch of nuke moves and no bait move, but now it gets access to Legacy Brutal Swing. You can get Brutal Swing Absol by doing a raid. I did a remote raid, and it will learn Brutal Swing, or once the event is over, you'll be able to Elite TM it onto existing Absol. So without further ado, let's hop onto the matches and take a look at some practice Open Great League battles versus members of my Discord. Hopping into the first match, picking up a positive lead, leading the Shadow Drapion into Shadow Sableye. Opponent safe switches into a Lapras. Now, my Lapras, I am not running Skull Bash, so if my opponent has Skull Bash, things could get a little bit uncomfortable, so I just decide to stay in and play it out with the Drapion. Drapion is going to be hit with Sparkling Aria. That's some pretty significant damage, and I'm going to look to return fire with the Crunch. Crunch is going to pick up the knockout. In comes Sableye. I get to the move, but my opponent, very nicely done there, firing off the foul play to deny that energy. And now, it's time. In comes Absol, and it looks like it is going to be only 3 snarls to a Brutal Swing, so this thing is quite quick to get the charge moves. They're going to go for a foul play because Absol is so glassy. A foul play will KO off of resisted Shadow Claws. I'm already below half HP. I'm going to undertap here as my opponent could have done one and the move, and I wanted to force their final shield first. Now this is going to be tough. They are close to the back-to-back. I could undertap, but I'm going to predict a catch and switch into Lapras, and it's a simul switch out, Lapras into Credilli. Now this is actually kind of nice that I don't have Skull Bash here, because Ice Beam will hit for super effective damage. Credilli debuffs me with a Rock Tomb. I farm up as much energy as possible and fire off the Ice Beam. Ice Beam connects, massive damage. Credilli barely able to hang on, and they're going to fire off the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is going to KO. In comes Absol. Absol gets to the back-to-back moves, and we're going to take a win in game number 1. Brutal Swing KOs Credilli. In comes the Sableye, and this Brutal Swing is only neutral damage, but Absol has an absurd attack stat, knocking out the Sableye and taking the win. Moving to the next match, leading Shadow Drapion into Azumarill. I'm going to farm up a ton, go for a switch into Lapras, and my opponent does actually decide to stay in and fire off some energy. Absol, by the way, just as a bit of fun trivia, wins CMP over Morpeko by 16. That's how glassy this thing is. My opponent did soften up the Lapras with a player up before bringing in Guzzlord. Guzzlord tanks the Ice Beam and is now going to fire off some energy. Brutal Swing lands. Can I make it to the Aria? Unfortunately, no, I cannot. I send in the Drapion, farming up to 100, and they're low enough that an Aqua Tail should be enough to pick up the KO, and does. Back in comes the Azumarill, and this is exactly what I wanted to see. I cannot have Absol trying to KO an Azumarill, so I'm going to need Drapion to put in some work here. Crunch is going to land. No debuff comes through, which is a little bit unfortunate. I am going to be shielding up the play rough and going for another Crunch. This will not knock out, but it will get my opponent deep into the red. They are going to no-shield. They're switching in the back. It's going to be Skeleturge, and that's a Pokemon that Absol does actually want to see. Aqua Tail bait does get shielded. In comes Absol, and this pacing is very, very fast. The unfortunate thing is I'm getting shredded. Look at poor Absol getting deleted by those Incinerates. Super effective Incinerates don't even hit that hard. And these are neutral Incinerates, just absolutely destroying Absol. Absol is going to fire off the Brutal Swing, KOing Skeleturge. In comes Azumarill. We get the Snarl farm down, and that's a good game. Shadow Drapion into a regular Galarian Weezing. So this, I'm definitely happy to see this here. Obviously, if they have Overheat, it could be difficult, but they don't farm up. So I don't really have a reason to respect the Sludge. Now, I do know the matchup versus the Shadow Weezing pretty well. Versus the regular Weezing, I'm not as comfortable with it overall, but I'm pretty sure that I should be able to still survive. I'm going to try and farm up to the back-to-back Aqua Tails, because if Aqua Tail knocks out here, then I'll leave with a move. Or, if they shield, they can KO me, but I will have gotten a shield advantage. So, I do actually pick up the knockout. In comes Credilli, and unfortunately my opponent does get denied here. So they don't get the Bullet Seed through. The good news is I would have got the move anyway. And now I'm going to bring in Absol. Absol farming up. I'm going for the Brutal Swing right away. I need damage before they debuff me. Brutal Swing is going to be shielded. Rock Tomb would probably just one-shot. Absol is 1400 stat product, so I will commit the shield. They're staying in, and I think I'm 4 off the Mega Horn. Oh my goodness. There's no way they're going to think this is anything but a Brutal Swing. It's a Mega Horn. They get one shot. In the back is Furret. And because I'm debuffed, I switch out into Lapras. But as soon as I do, suddenly I am worried. I think I should have banked a Brutal Swing before switching out because my opponent goes for a Trailblaze, and Trailblaze is going to inflict some very solid damage onto the Lapras. They're going to no shield, and suddenly I see that I've lost this game because my opponent can actually take advantage of the fact that I'm switch locked. They can Sucker Punch all the way down and leave with 2 boosted Swifts. So unfortunately, weirdly enough, Absol did its job there, but I switched out too soon. I didn't bank the move as I should have, and that ends up costing me the game. We move into the next match, Shadow Drapion into Shadow Galarian Weezing. This Weezing is farming up to a potential Overheat. Aqua Tail is going to connect. That's big damage, and if they have Overheat, I'm just going to let myself get KO'd. But they don't have it. They have the Sludge. That works for me, as now I can return fire with the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail into the Weezing is going to be shielded. Weezing will be forced to fire off some energy, and I'm very okay. I've basically neutralized the Fairy type, and I've got a shield advantage, both of which should hopefully mean that Absol can do something in the back, as Absol needs some kind of advantage, and preferably a Mon with no fast move pressure to have any remote chance of success. Out comes a Shadow Blastoise. Shadow Blastoise, I'm farming up, and I will fire off this Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria is going to connect, doing some pretty nice damage. I farm up, and I thought I threw 5 in the move there, but I guess I threw 6. So unfortunately, I played to a CMP tie that I do not win, and I get KO'd. Out comes Absol. Opponent is going to switch out. In the back is Furret, and now may be an opportunity for redemption. I lost to the last Furret, and I'm going to try and clutch here with Absol. Absol firing off Brutal Swing number 2. Opponent is going to shield up the Furret. Furret firing off a Swift, and I will need to throw 2 more Snarls and then throw on Alignment, because if I overfarm any more, they can force my Final Shield and then snipe with the Blastoise. So I will be able to pick up the knockout. I believe Blastoise was 1 off the back-to-back Hydros. If that's the case, I win. They're 1 off, and we're going to take victory here with the Absol. My goodness, that was way too close. But Absol, it's going to win CMP over basically everything. We've got the worst case scenario lead in the next match, Shadow Drapion into Annihilate, and here I don't even build up to the crunch, because I intentionally want my opponent to no shield. I need damage on this thing, and I'm going to go for another Aqua Tail. They have to go for an Ice Punch or a Close Combat here to knock out. If they Rage Fist, it does not KO. I bring in the Lapras, and unfortunately, they pivot out. And that's actually really bad for me, because I needed to get the Psy Waves onto that Annihilate, because Annihilate is just going to destroy my poor Absol in the back. And Absol also loses to Drapion, so unfortunately, Absol is a little bit in shambles right now. They are going to fire off another Crunch into the Lapras. Lapras hangs on 1 HP, and in comes Absol. Absol is going to be committing the shield and looking for the full Snarl farm down, but I do not want to see what Shadow Annihilate counters look like on my Absol here. They're sending it in, and oh no, those counters, I'm just getting deleted. I fire off the Brutal Swing. My only hope is that I undertap and my clock's up, but my clock, it's close to up, but it's not available, so I just get fully farmed down. I will be able to finally KO the Annihilate, so I'll get to see what is in the back here. In the back, it's going to be a Shadow Magnezone. Shadow Magnezone's glassy enough that a Brutal Swing might have done close to a knockout, but I just could not get through that Annihilate. We move to the next match, leading a Drapion into a Shadow Cradily. Shadow Cradily going to be firing off the Rock Tomb, and I will immediately respond with the Crunch. I did refresh my game data, so my game now thinks I'm a brand new player. And here I can't even describe why I made the play that I made here. For some reason in my head, I mean, it's the end of a long day, I'm tired. I thought that it was 4-3 to Rock Tomb. It's definitely 4-4, so there was no reason to throw Crunch on Alignment and let my opponent get a catch there. I think that's just a little bit of tiredness coming through in my gameplay. I rebank energy, send in the Lapras, and I'm going to fire off a Sparkling Aria as the game once again teaches me how to play. They actually will commit a shield, and I'm pretty okay with that. I do survive a sludge, so I'm more than happy to let this go, but I don't survive the overheat. That is massive damage. In comes Absol. I'm looking for a Snarl farm down. My opponent, it looked like they lagged there for a little bit, but then they were able to catch back up and switch out into Credilli. But Credilli did not have a move banked. In comes Weezing. Weezing firing off its energy here. I can shield up the sludge. They do not get to another move. What's in back? It's going to be a Sableye. And oh my goodness, am I happy to see ghost types in the back as long as they aren't Annihilate. Is Absol just gets to spam out these brutal swings. Brutal swing after brutal swing, but look at the Shadow Claws. They're still just melting Absol. My goodness. Absol does get to a third brutal swing, knocking out the Sableye, and we're able to take a win with a shield still remaining. We've got a core breaker on the lead in the next match, and its name is Steelix. I have 0 Pokemon on this team that beat Steelix, so this is going to be a problem. When it came to team building around Absol, I just tried to find 2 meta Pokemon that I felt had a lot of play into a lot of Pokemon, because I knew that in a lot of games, Absol would have very limited play. They do get the Breaking Swipe debuff, which makes a tough matchup even more difficult. I will be able to make one final Aqua Tail, but my opponent makes a really nice catch, and they're able to catch onto Golisopod. Golisopod, of course, going to be resisting Aqua Tail. I can't afford to bring Absol into the Golisopod, so I'm going to send in Lapras. Lapras doesn't have a terrific matchup, though. Golisopod's able to fight back with X-Scissor, and unlike in the Ultra League, in the Great League, those X-Scissors actually do a lot of damage. This next X-Scissor is going to connect. I'm at back-to-back Sparkling Arias. This will not knock out, but I'll try and Psy-Wave down after. It's going to be very close to Psy-Wave down. I leave on 1 HP with a move, but I get sniped with a Psy-Wave from Grumpig. I lose the move, but Grumpig is basically one of the only things that I could actually beat in the back, potentially. I get to fire off Brutal Swing at the Grumpig. Grumpig's going to get to spam out super effective dynamic punches, but Absol has the pacing advantage. I do have to watch for a potential snipe from the Steelix. I should live a potential Breaking Swipe, but I'm not going to live it by much. Breaking Swipe will probably do over 40% of Absol's total HP bar. I will shield up as the Absol, continuing to watch for a switch, farming up. There's the switch into the Steelix. I don't get the catch, but I have the move, so I can win the CMP tie, denying Steelix's energy. Brutal Swing KOs. It's going to be a race. Grumpig does not get to the move. Absol, Brutal Swing, knocks out the Grumpig, and we're able to take the win. We see an absolute disaster of a lead in the next match. If Annihilate was bad, Pangoro is honestly worse. Pangoro is going to be farming up a ton of energy here, firing off a close combat, and I will commit the shield. Pangoro choosing to stay in this matchup. I am going to be firing off this Aqua Tail, and Aqua Tail will be grabbing a shield from my opponent. I'm going to be shielding back, which unfortunately means no shields for Absol in the end game. I go for the Aqua Tail, and there's a devastating catch onto Superior. That is not good for me. Here is where I would love to try and turn wait and check to see if they switch, but unfortunately turn waiting on Android as of late, it's just 100% of the time it just won't update. I switch into the Lapras because I need to save the energy on the Drapion, but realistically I'm in so much trouble now. Lapras is going to get a farm down. Back in comes Pangoro, and Pangoro will immediately be met with a Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria is going to be shielded. Pangoro is going to get the farm down. I do have the move on Drapion, but of course I lose CMP by a mile, so I am going to be waiting down the timer here, bringing in the Drapion. My opponent doesn't throw. I guess they were expecting a Peekaboo play, but I don't. I just get the knockout, but in the back is Weezing, so even though they predicted a Peekaboo play and I didn't go for it, unfortunately, it's just going to be a loss. There's nothing that I can do here with the Absol. Absol, now you might think, Henry, it's only a neutral sludge. Look at those Fairy Winds, man. I'm just getting deleted. This is a 1400 stat product Pokemon, sludge one-hit KO, and we do lose that game. Hopping into the final match, leading Shadow Drapion into Furret. Great lead, and I'm thrilled they're staying in as well. Farming up, firing off the crunch. This will not knock out, but it will inflict serious damage. I get the debuff. Opponent tries for an Aqua Tail catch onto Azumarill. I get to farm to 100, bring in my Lapras, and that Drapion energy should set me up for success against just about anything in the back. Azumarill Play Rough is going to connect, farming up with the Lapras. Lapras farming up a ton of energy, and it looks like I did actually throw an alignment there. So, again, I think a little bit of the tiredness from the day getting to me in this moment, as I'm not quite timing my attacks as perfectly as I should. There's a snipe with Furret, and that's nicely done. Furret does have back-to-back moves, but Drapion should win a CMP tie here, but my move doesn't show up. Fix one turn lag, man. It's so frustrating. But I'm going to save all the energy and send in Absol. I still have all the energy on the Drapion, but I'm really, really low, which is a bit problematic. I get a huge farm down with Absol. I'm down a shield. In comes a Azumarill, and I will be firing off the Brutal Swing. Mega Horn, I think, would knock out. A Brutal Swing will not. Opponent is going to end up committing a shield, and I'm going to have to shield back. These bubbles look super effective. Absol getting absolutely melted. I fire off the Brutal Swing into the Azumarill. Azumarill no shields, and this is going to be tough. I have the Brutal Swing, and this will be able to pick up the KO. If they're going to let it go, in the back is Sableye. I try for the Mega Horn, and I can't get there. I went for the clip. Mega Horn would have one-shot. I could have just Brutal Swinged and just won the game because I had 2 moves loaded on the Drapion, but I went for the clip for the video, and unfortunately, Absol just doesn't have the bulk to get there. And now some final thoughts on Absol and the addition of Brutal Swing. First off, this is an addition that does help Absol. Absol previously was trying to bait with Dark Pulse, and if you're glassy and you're slow, it doesn't matter how much damage you're doing. So this is a step in the right direction for Absol, as Brutal Swing allows it to actually have pacing, and pacing and damage is something that is potentially workable. However, the biggest issues for Absol still remain the fact that it has 1400 stat product, and even against like a Sableye, which is resisted Shadow Claws, you just get melted. Morpeko is more around 15 to 1600 stat product, and that level of lack of bulk is more workable than 1400. And I do think realistically, if it wanted to see anti-meta play, it would need a new fast move as well. I believe it was mentioned that in the main series, it can have access to Sucker Punch, and I think Sucker Punch Absol could be very fun, because those Sucker Punches would just provide terrifying damage output into anything that doesn't have a Dark Resist. So we've seen quite a few times. They will oftentimes add a move to a Mon. It doesn't really move the needle a lot, like it makes it better, but then in the future, we end up seeing a pretty big update, like for example, Swalot. When it got Mudshot, didn't really see much play, but now that it has Mudshot and Sludge, it's a very strong pick for the Open Great League. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.